Welcome to today's webinar. Atlantis Computing and VMware have partnered to deliver a joint
You are now muted.
the specific needs and
Now muted.
virtualization for financial services industry. The solution is called Secure and High Performance for Computing, and we have distinguished panel of speakers from Atlantis Computing, VMware, and a very special guest speaker from Washington Trust Bank. Before I'd like to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. This session will be recorded, and if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A console. Will be Seth Knox, Director of Product Marketing from Atlantis Computing, Muthu Samasandram, Marketing Manager and User and Computing from VMware, and Chris Green, VP of Infrastructure at Washington Trust Bank.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Muthu Somasundaram. I'm a marketing manager in the end user computing business unit at VMware. Today, we're going to talk about a joint solution that VMware has been working with Atlantis for the past year or so around financial services. Before we get into the solution specifically around specifically for our financial services customers, I want to talk a little bit about the business issues in the financial services industry's transformation right now. Well, with the industry as a whole, there are a lot of business issues that we see right now, which are common across verticals. They can be mobility, the device initiatives, improving customer experience, etc. There are very specific challenges that financial customers also face in terms of accelerating time to market for critical applications, rewriting applications, some of those back-end IT functions, which not only demands a desktop transformation, but also a server and storage level transformation on the back end to move to the next-gen computing from an end-user computing from an end-user perspective and also an IT perspective. In general, when we look at the business issues, we got, in addition to that, we got the access and availability of customer data, corporate applications. The biggest things that we see in the financial services industry is the regulatory compliance issues. Whatever solution that get incorporated in the infrastructure within the financial services customer has to be compliant to various regulations that are governing the industry. So, business and technology transformations. We talked about the business issues that we are facing, but in business and technology transformations are interconnected. The thing that we are seeing is a very siloed infrastructure. A lot of financial services, banks, and insurance agencies that we are seeing have an IT infrastructure which is siloed within the data center. We are rapidly moving towards the cloud-based solution or the virtualization solution, which is the IT of tomorrow. Infrastructure transformations are happening from the hardware side and the data center side. The section or the area where end users actually interface with IT is the application. We say that, right? When people log into their desktops, they don't just sit there and watch the screensaver or the wallpaper. They want to launch an application and get productive. Applications form the critical point in which IT end users interface with IT. Financial services industry is very heavy on legacy applications, and there has been a strong push to new applications in the past few years, and the push is continuing on to provide the same applications or similar applications via the SaaS model or the service analytics model. The transformation is one of the key drivers in any of the end-user computing transformation that we are seeing. And finally, the end compute device, the consumption, application and infrastructure are the delivery mechanisms, and how to actually consume these services, whether it be desktops, applications, or data. There has been a whole bunch of new devices that have come out in the past few years, and the pace of innovation in the end device point is only accelerating. It's not going to decelerate anytime. As they adopt these devices in their personal life, they expect the same user experience, and they expect the same kind of accessibility, high availability, and user experience, etc., from these devices for your enterprise functions also. This is driving the transition. That it's in essence, if you look at the top and bottom portions of the slide, it is a push-pull effect. While the end users, enterprise, are asking for a change in terms of consumption and delivery, the IT team is actually right now is enabled to provide change because of the increasing virtualization that's happening in the data center, the application side. We went a little further to make end user transformation a reality within the FinServ businesses. Technology initiatives to support business cases or to support the business transformation. We looked at when we did looked at a partner survey that was talking about the hosted virtual desktop as a model for enabling end users to access their desktops and applications. They did a survey and they figured financial services is actually the second biggest vertical in which they are seeing a high adoption of virtual desktops. This is in direct relation to the business transformation that is happening within the financial services industry, and it is one of the hot areas that people are looking at. And when we another Gartner survey, which was conducted to the services CEOs and business executives, the technology-related investment in fiscal year 2013, the top technology-related investments, enterprise mobility actually ranks number 2. Enterprise mobility initiatives have been ranked in the top 3 since 2010, and they've been a staple. Every CEO and every financial services industry executive has mobility as one of the key priorities that they want to focus on to enable both the employee productivity and also customer satisfaction. Media as a transformation tool. How do we spoke about the business issues that financial industry is facing, and we talked about the trends the financial industry is seeing. How can VDI actually help in this transformation? That end users are going to be adopting new devices as they come into the market. By leveraging VDI, the virtual desktop infrastructure as a transformational tool, what I can do is they can bring the individual desktop systems that the end users are using right now. Typically, a system consists of 3 layers: an operating system, an application layer, and a persona layer. The persona layer is the user personalization layer. With what you essentially do is you separate out these 3 layers and you offer them as a centralized management, or you offer them as a centralized service. One of the benefits of this is the centralized management aspect of it, and once it's separated and hosted out in the data center, this can be offered to any device that the user is using. In essence, what this is, it gets the user with the exact same user experience across the devices. From a user perspective, this is really significant because they can use any device that they want, a tablet, a phablet, a Mac, or a PC, whatever that might be, as access to their desktop and applications as they would have if we're using a physical desktop in their desk. At that standpoint, it simplifies the task a lot simpler because the moment you break down the silos in your end user's physical desktop and move them to the data center, you're securing the data more effectively by putting stringent security guards and keeping the data within the data center. What you're letting your users do is just access the data over the network. The advantage of doing this is by desktops to the data center and offering the exact same desktop to any user device, essentially eliminating the rewrite of applications. Using a Windows application before, if you want to provide that application access to a Mac system or tablet, in the past you had to rewrite each and every application for those specific form factors, for those specific operating systems. With this, in effect, you don't have to do that. You are delivering. This is a containerized model in which, for the critical applications that the end users have to access, they can use exactly the same desktop as they were using before. The applications that the user has been using before are available from one single desktop view. It can be your legacy applications, it can be SaaS applications, it can be the new web applications, what applications might be. Since we are offering this containerized solution, the end user gets to see the exact same interface from any device. This simplifies their learning curve. This actually eliminates any learning curve that you might have to have them go through to adopt new devices, and it improves their productivity a lot by letting them know what they want and by providing access to the critical desktops and applications in a much more secure way. For the things as to what companies should move to VDI is improve access to customer data. When you talk about VDI, you're talking about native desktop experience with support for communications in 3D. Financial services customers these days, when we are seeing, are moving towards a unified communication model in which they are letting the end users access desktops and applications from any device, and also letting the users, or they would also prefer the users, use the secure unified communication channels for audio and video transmission. We actually helps you do that. Support BYOD and mobile endpoints. A lot of organizations that we see have a very active BYOD initiative. The VDI model actually simplifies the BYOD initiative and helps you accelerate the deployment to get that initiative completed much faster. With consistent access across locations, like an office, at home, or on the go, you're getting to see the exact same desktop from your office, from your home, or from anywhere that you want to get access to. From an IT standpoint, it enhances security and compliance. Virtual desktop infrastructure, you are delivering a secure brokering solution and management to other platforms, and it simplifies the antivirus deployment. Other times, one of the biggest complaints that we hear from customers is when they push an antivirus deployment or an antivirus update, the customers or the end users don't really accept it. The first thing they do is postpone or delay the update. This has the potential of opening the organization's security perimeter. With VDI, you actually perform your antivirus and also security patch management updates and everything from a centralized location, wherein the users are not going to see any hindrance to their daily productivity, while at the same time IT can have complete control of how pristine their environment can be maintained. Okay? And secure local and remote access. Security is the key point in financial services organizations, and by moving and desktops and applications out to the data center are essentially keeping in compliance. We had one recent incident that we was talking to a customer locally in San Francisco, where the break-in incident and the bank lost one laptop. At the it is just one laptop. The capital cost is not going to be much, but in terms of the compliance, in terms of the press. The bad press that it generates by potential loss of any customer data is pretty significant. With the VMware model, you're enhancing security in that the end devices do not store any data whatsoever. You always look at your desktop applications which are hosted in the data center or remote call. That's about it. Finally, reducing management complexity and cost. IT standpoint, as you're scaling up and down your infrastructure, as users want to join in, or if the project ends, if you want to get rid of a whole bunch of desktops, the provision and deprovision desktops is minutes and hours and not days. And because you're maintaining the desktop image in the data center, you are having a single, in a lot of instances, or in some instances, very, very few desktop images to manage. You can have one good image, you can customize for each desktop or each group, and have very few desktop images to manage on the whole. So a single admin console to simplify IT management. This is one of the critical benefits, because when we are talking about managing all the desktops from the data center and all the desktops location, having a single admin console which gives an overview as to how exactly the IT team can manage all the desktops, or simplifying the process for them to manage the desktops, provisioning, deprovisioning, troubleshooting, updating, everything, that is critical. This solution, the VDI solution, offers that. And finally, enterprise-ready with mission-critical high availability and disaster recovery options. Since the solution is built on vSphere, we're taking advantage of all the organization features, high availability and disaster recovery features that vSphere offers. And on top of that, we worked with Atlantis on the solution to provide enhanced availability, enhanced disaster recovery support for some of our critical user profiles within the financial services industry. Considerations for VDI implementations. Some of the key ones are cost, better CapEx and OpEx than a physical PC. This is actually pretty critical. One of the biggest issues that we have seen in the past is when you want to move to VDI, essentially, the biggest issue that is the initial CapEx cost. In this solution, we will talk about it as we move along, but what we done is we have also published a paper around this with IDC. We have taken this entire total cost of ownership model in which we consider the CapEx and model, which includes the direct cost of supporting a desktop environment, and we found that by moving to VDI, this particular solution, an IT organization can save approximately $500 per year over the full life of 4 years of a typical deployment. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along and how we can reduce costs with specifically the Atlantis dedupe options in the future slides. And user experience, at least equal to physical PC device and endpoint agnostic. Customers want to move VDI. That's one of the critical requirements. That is, when they move to the physical PC, the solution that they are offering should be at least equal to physical PC, and in a lot of times they want it much better than what they can get in a physical PC. Faster, more graphically sound desktops. Can be deployed rapidly with very, very low risk, scalability, simplicity, and storage. Those are key considerations that the customers have usually for VDI implementations. VDI storage. Like I said before, when we look at the total cost of ownership of a desktop, just the CapEx component of it has these 5 different components. This is a study that was published by Gartner in July 2013, just last month. In essence, what they're saying is the cost of a physical PC is coming down, and from a virtual desktop standpoint also, the total cost of ownership for all the all the components like Microsoft license, service, network, the clients, everything is coming down. The only thing that is kind of staying up yet is the storage. If you look at the total cost of ownership of virtual desktop infrastructure, the data center components constitute 50% of the total cost, and alone constitutes 50% of the data center cost. As the other component prices keep coming down, the pie chart that storage cost occupies is actually increasing. Challenges in moving to VDI for a lot of our customers, and that is specifically the solution that we are offering in this with Atlantis, in essence, to reduce the cost of storage. We talk more specifically about that as a transition over to Seth in the next few slides, but keep in mind that storage cost is the most expensive, and we want to reduce. By bringing that cost down, we can bring down the total cost of a virtual desktop and make it much attractive in price compared to a physical PC. The Atlantis computing and VMware solution, the secure and high-performance end-user computing solution, specifically for financial services, provides or gives you a solution which can enable you to transition to the virtual desktop infrastructure at a much lower cost and with much better performance than a physical PC. And the key component of the solution, mobility, obviously, by moving to VDI, you will be supporting a highly mobile workforce that needs workspace and that's roam on or off premise. You're taught device agnostic and providing better than PC user experience from any device that the user uses. For reduced CapEx and OpEx in this particular solution, we are talking about saving $500 a user per year over a useful life of 4 years, considering both the CapEx and OpEx cost of moving to VDI with the Atlantis option. Security and compliance, local remote access that is secure and compliant. linear scalability with lower risk, and finally, availability, high availability, which is enterprise ready. All right, the solution has two key components, as you would guess from the name: the VMware component and the Atlantis component. The component is primarily the software component, and which is the Horizon View component. Point. This is the solution this is the component that is the VDI part solution. That is, it transforms the desktops and applications from a PC to a centralized data center with virtualization. Using Horizon VMware View Broker, you can manage and securely access your virtual desktops from a single admin console, removing data off of endpoints, essentially making the engagement much more secure, making the deployment much more secure and easy of access, and finally delivering your desktop and applications to end users from any device who can access this from any device anywhere. A little bit of key talking about, like I said before, by moving to VDI using VMware View, your end users can access your desktops and applications from any device, using a highly efficient remote protocol, which is the PC over IP protocol. We also see HTML5 based access using the BLAST protocol. What it provides is security and compliance, anywhere access, business agility, mobile BYOD access support, and OpEx savings. This is the Horizon View component. Like I said, from the data center standpoint, storage is one of the key things that we want to address before we move VDI, and I'm going to transition after Seth from Atlantis Computing to talk more about their product. Seth?
Thank you. Thank you for the great introduction and some of the background and interest in the storage problem. I think one of the things we've seen, we worked with a lot of joint financial services customers with VMware. We're going to hear from Chris Green from Washington Trust Bank after I talk a little bit of storage. And storage is one of the key problems. But before we get into that, I wanted to kind of discuss some of the different deployment models that exist with VDI, because they're fundamental to how you approach storage for desktop virtualization. So, two different deployment models. The first one is called a persistent desktop. This is where each user has a dedicated virtual machine, like a physical PC, but run in the data center. It uses the same images as a PC, so it's very easy to transition from a physical environment to a persistent virtual desktop. Same process for updating and patching the images, and like you mentioned, antivirus, you can run it in the same way as you did inside your image, right? So you can. There's very little disruption to how the IT organization works with a persistent desktop. So it's often one of the first step into VDI, and then people start moving to the other model, which is stateless, which you talked about, having user persona, virtualizing apps, and streaming things into the image. The problem with persistent desktops is that historically, we looked at the cost per desktop of, being $1,000 per user. The reason for that is because it requires so much storage, both to provide the performance the user needs. So if we're trying to achieve equal or better than physical PC performance, that requires a lot of shared storage in a persistent environment. And capacity. So it requires, it has 40, 50, 60 gigabytes in financial services customer. I've seen as many as 80 gigabytes per user in storage used for a persistent desktop. Now, in a financial services industry, if you think about the types of users that you have in different financial services, an office worker, an insurance broker, a loan agent, those types of people will typically orient towards a persistent virtual desktop because they're using a variety of different applications. They need the ability to customize their desktop and so forth. Desktop is a desktop in which you separate components of the virtual desktop, including user persona, virtualizing apps that may not fit in the base image, and the OS and applications, and then you combine those at the time the user logs in. So they may get one of many desktops that are in a pool of available desktops, and then all of their user data becomes accessible when they log in. This is a good approach for users in which they have a limited number of applications, so you don't have to virtualize that many. Many financial services companies might have call center workers, or people who have a very specific task that they perform. And all of those applications can be built into the virtual desktop image. For the office workers, it's typically in a financial services in particular, where you have hundreds or thousands of applications, you tend to go with a persistent desktop or a mixed environment where you have certain users using stateless and some using persistent. So in the overall market, the rough breakdown of persistent versus stateless is about 70% persistent and 30% stateless. In financial services, I think it's even more skewed towards persistent. And some of those other verticals, even like healthcare, tends to be more on the stateless side. So these two models are a fundamental choice that you make. Which users use persistent desktops, which ones use stateless, that affect your storage decisions. So let's talk about how this works with Atlantis. So Atlantis ILIO is a 100% software solution that complements VMware View to optimize how the virtual desktops use storage and reduce that cost and improve the user experience. You can achieve that better than physical PC experience, spending $1,000 per user on storage. So the Atlantis ILIO persistent VDI solution, no changes to the desktop images, the processes, or how the support is done for a desktop. You can achieve a lower cost than a physical PC on a CapEx basis. So Muthu talked about the benefits from an OpEx perspective, where you can get that $500 a year in desktop management cost reduction. But with Atlantis, what you can do is actually bring down the CapEx so that it's lower cost than a physical PC, so that you don't have to use the OpEx savings to justify higher CapEx. So it really opens up the market to a lot of people who are cost sensitive, and we're inhibited from trying VDI because of the upfront cost that you needed to put into it. We'll talk a little bit more about the technology in a second, but we have virtual desktops leveraging the local server's memory, and that makes it possible to deliver amazingly fast user experience that are comparable or better experience than like a physical PC with an SSD or a MacBook Air. It's fully automated deployment. It integrates with vSphere and Virtual Center. We'll talk about that a little later. It provides NDR by integrating with vSphere and some of the capabilities in the platform from VMware. In a stateless desktop, we have the product is called Atlantis ILIO Diskless VDI, and this allows you to deploy VDI with no storage or SSDs required. So you can actually use the primary storage where the virtual desktops or the VMware View linked clones are stored is completely in memory. Again, tremendous performance. This allows you to scale to a very large number of users, tens of thousands of users, using only the VMware View software, the Atlantis ILIO software, and whatever your server platform is, without having to buy large amounts of SAN or manage lots of local SSD, which can be difficult to do at scale. A little bit about where Atlantis fits in the VMware View architecture. So Atlantis ILIO is actually just a virtual machine that fits transparently and works on each server that's running the virtual desktop. So VMware View sees us as a NFV SCSI data store. So it's integrates very seamlessly. You don't change anything about how you do work with View, works with ThinApp, any of the technologies that you already have in place today with VMware View. So technology a little bit, how do we do this? So basically on your left you have a graph of the I/O and storage traffic that's generated by a virtual desktop. And that's that blue graph on the left from coming in from the hypervisor. Atlantis ILIO, this view, we are a virtual machine, and we're performing a series of optimization technologies. So we understand the application and how the Windows operating system is generating I/O. We process that I/O locally in RAM. We do duplication, compression. We burst the effects of the I/O blender effect that's caused by a hypervisor. And then we also have a capability called fast replication that allows you to replicate I/O to shared storage for backup and recovery. Now, we can operate in two modes. One is we can use the local server RAM as a tier of storage and enhance your existing storage. So if you have an existing NetApp or EMC, in the case of Chris, I think it was an EMC storage array that was, and he needed to be able to increase the number of users and improve the performance of that existing storage. Or we can do in-memory, what we call an in-memory deployment, where the entire virtual machine is running in memory, and you need any storage on the back end except for backup and recovery purposes. On the right, you'll see the red graph, which is all of the blocks and storage I/O after optimization. So essentially, you're going from a very amount of I/O and capacity required to 90–95% less I/O and capacity, which is what gives you that ability to save on the storage costs and infrastructure. On the product, it's software only, very fast installation. You can run any server or any storage platform, again, in memory or with existing storage. So even if you have an existing deployment, you're not going to have to re-architect. You can leverage the hardware that you already have. It works with XP, Windows 7, any of the Windows operating systems. Architectures, there's links to them at the bottom if you want to dive into them more, but this is a 1,000-user persistent VDI architecture that we did with VMware Horizon View, the 5.0 version. So you see dramatic cost savings, 90+% reduction in storage, total cost per desktop 50% less and below the cost of a physical PC. And you see that in this case, for 1,000 users, we were able to reduce the amount of storage by 97% on a per basis. Because we can, persistent desktops, you aren't able to use link clones, you'll be using full clones. So in that case, we have a capability called fast clone that can provision fast clones for persistent VDI in seconds without having to generate any storage or network traffic. Now, reference architecture that we did with VMware View a little more recently, that is with the diskless VDI capability using linked clones. Those linked clones were placed on a data store that was leveraging local server RAM. And you can see here that we're able to do things like generate 200+ IOPS per desktop, whereas a normal virtual desktop might be sized for 10, 20, 30 IOPS per desktop. That performance comes in. So you can see the View Planner response was kind of fastest possible at 0.53 seconds response time. We composed the 120 desktops, in seconds. Boot time was 12 seconds. So this gives you a sense of how good the performance would be. You can, again, read the full reference architecture at that link below. I don't want to take up any of Chris's time. So Chris has been working with VMware and Atlantis and has been deployed in production with persistent virtual desktops for more than 2 years. He spoke at the VMworld last year and presented on his deployment. So I wanted to, so we are talking financial services, have Chris give you a perspective on how VDI in a financial services organization works. So with that, let me turn it over to Chris.
Great, thank you, Seth, and greetings to everybody on the webinar today. It's always a pleasure to kind of share our story with others, and particularly when your story has a good ending, For us, getting into the business drivers, if you will, for our VDI deployment, we our Windows 7 migration as kind of the opportunity to move into a virtual desktop environment, and the reason behind wanting to go to a virtual desktop environment were pretty reasons most people want to: centralize management, the security, operational cost reductions. Mobility was always a piece of this for us, even from the very early planning stages back in, let's say, 2009, when we actually started looking at this, because we knew we would have a need, an increasing need, to support a mobile workforce, and we used the virtual desktop infrastructure as a great way to enable that mobile workforce early on. Regarding our user requirements, I'd like to to kind of point out actually that last bullet first. I think we can all agree that user acceptance is critical to any project that we do in IT. I mean, we can come up with all kinds of great, technology solutions and things, but if your end users don't accept it, if they don't embrace it, if they don't get any perceived value from their business perspective, it's not going to help them any, and it's not going to really do your business much good. So with that in mind, one of the things we knew early on is we create reduction in the user experience by giving them EDI, expectations regarding new technology, and then the fundamental expectation is always that new technology is going to be better than the previous technology or the old technology. So we had to come up with something that was at least equal, but hopefully better in performance. Both at the PC level, since we were shooting for to support a mobile workforce, it had to work over the WAN very good. We had to be able to support multiple devices, if you will. So all those things were very important to us early on. So anyway, the little blurb at the bottom there is just a little anecdotal story from when we started pushing this out. We have just new to our finance department, and he'd been with us about 3 months when we started doing this, and he pulled me aside and he goes, well, I've heard about this virtual desktop infrastructure. Will I be able to use my MacBook to test my desktop? I was told from your help desk that we didn't support those, and that it wasn't possible to support a MacBook. I said, actually, once we get this out, you can actually use your MacBook. So he was elated to that he could have more of a choice in the type of endpoint that he wanted to use. So moving on, our first actually use case when we went to deploy the virtual desktop infrastructure was with our home loan center. We had our home loan manager. It actually came to me. Really, it was actually pre-production, and he goes, I'm wanting to change how we do things. I want to move my home loan producers, my home loan advisors. I want to move them out of the central office and put them in our branch locations. He said, can you support that from an IT perspective? And of course, I said, yes, we can do that. And I think the technology that we're getting ready to deploy here it will even help you to a greater extent than what we could do before. Before that, to put the loan officers out into the branches would really require, in short, it would require actually a physical PC with the loan production center image on it, and deploying those to every one of our branches that a loan advisor be at. So talking, 50 new PCs sitting out in a branch so that loan advisors could move around. And the issues that you run, even running a PC remotely, pulling down profiles and all these things. Obviously, EDI really helped us here because we have to deploy any new assets to the branches. All we had to do is deploy a view client to one or two PCs out in the branches, and then that officer could just log in via the view client. They get the desktop. They get every time they log in, no matter what branch they're at, whether they're at the main office, whether they're even working from a client location. So again, this is an example of where the mobility really played in and really benefited us right out of the chute with that. Project though itself, if we looked at the pretty much the reference architecture that was available at the time, and we kind of developed our model around that. If you kind of look at what's up on the screen right now, it's a pretty standard view deployment. We specifically were looking to leverage an eMCCX4 storage array that we already had. That's key to this project, that we could leverage from a storage perspective, because we knew early on, and as we've talked about before, would be an extremely expensive part of this, and we felt that if we could leverage our existing storage investment, that would keep the overall cost down and make this a viable option for us. We chose to use for our initial deployment Dell R710 servers and WISE clients, mostly the P2000 clients for that. So through our testing, through our pilot phase, everything looked really, really good for us until we started going to production. And here's where the wheels kind of started to come off the cart, if you will. We had deployed 90 users, and we had designed our system, we felt, to accommodate 500 users. Well, at the 90 user points, and all of a sudden the help desk started getting fairly regular calls about performance issues and at slowness, to be specific. And we were kind of scratching our heads a little bit, going, we've only deployed 90 users. What's going on here? Well, we quickly found that we were overdriving the storage processors on the CX4, and we take a closer look at that. And okay, well, what is it? It's the ILIO. It's the offset requirements coming from the VDI environment was basically saturating our storage processors. That was back when when we were doing this, we weren't really aware of the criticality of IOPS. We've since learned the lesson there. So in order to address this IOPS issue, we got with our vendors, our hardware vendors, and they said, oh yeah, you need to get another storage array for this, and oh, by the way, it's going to cost around $100,000, maybe a little bit more. And we sat and said, well, if we have to throw another $100K into this project, we probably just bag it right now, because this drive the cost per desktop up too high. As I mentioned earlier, we were really relying on using our existing CX4. So before throwing in the towel, I did a little research, came across Atlantis and their software solution, so gave them a quick call and kind of set up a test stand. So we, long story short, went with the Atlantis ILIO product. So how does this help us out here? The search throughput. I mean, obviously that is the key here. As you can see, we dropped our IOPS workload, down, tremendously. In fact, on the slide that Seth showed earlier with the blue and the red graphs, those are actual snapshots of our environment post ILIO. So you can see just a major improvement in managing the IOPS. And the other benefit of ILIO, which was a pleasant surprise to us, was the reduction of the storage requirements. We have 5 terabytes set to support this environment. When we're done, we're looking at 800 gigabytes of storage to support the same 500 user environment. So tremendous. We were able to not only use our CX4, but we were able to reclaim a good portion of our storage to repurpose for other reasons. So our deployment, of course, was we want to maintain and have a high availability environment. We wanted to have an environment that was similar to what we could see in our server environment. That was another one of the benefits we felt we could get with going with VDI was to be able to have an environment that was available, and also let's call it a mobile or transferable environment. In other words, if we had a problem in one data center, we want to be able to bring up those desktops in another data center as generate several hundred new desktop PCs and ship those out to different locations. So our architecture included high availability failover from the very beginning. And the next slide kind of just gives a quick look at kind of what the basic availability looks like. In essence, it's just an extra host environment that is configured with the Atlantis product to take over the duties should one of the servers in that server cluster fail. And this is a scalable solution, can scale up to pretty much any number of servers that you would like to see. And there's the kind of the graphics to go along with that there. You know, to kind of wrap up here, what did we learn from it? Happy, yes, absolutely. The success and failure of any project. Plan BYO DC. BYD again, not something that people were talking about much. 4 years ago when we kind of started doing this. But you could see the trend. The trend was coming. My little story about the gentleman with the MacBook is a fairly common thing that we're beginning to see. So even if you're not planning to do it right now, it's just one of those things that's coming. It's kind of a wave that's going to be unavoidable. And mobility, definitely a great solution for mobility. And something that, as we looked at earlier in the slides as well, the mobility is something that enterprises, businesses are investing in nowadays. They recognize the value to their company on a number of fronts. However, security, eliminating security risk, and obviously in a financial services institution, security is paramount. And by keeping the in the data center, opposed to out on individual desktops or mobile endpoints, really helps to secure that data. And the fifth thing here, beware of the storage sledgehammer, as I call it. You make sure that your storage is adequately sized, both from a physical perspective of physical storage, but also from a storage processing perspective to handle the IOPS requirement that's going to be generated. And by the way, one of the things that surprised us was that Windows out of the box, the IOPS requirements was double of a XP desktop. We were aware of that. That's one of the things that caught us unaware. So, those are the things to bear in mind. Just to just quickly onto this here, I've been doing this for over 2 years now, and so our VM environment has continued to evolve. For example, we've moved more away from the Dell R710 server solution to the Cisco UCS chassis. These Cisco UCS chassis reside in multiple data centers, and so we're able to support virtual desktops out of multiple centers. And the one good thing here too is that we proved the value of VDI to the senior executives of the organization. Now they're willing to actually spend more money because they've actually seen the value to the business, and ways that you can really see how helped us is that now two plus years on, first of all, is VDI to address known business issues, but now it's turning around and VDI has become part of the process where when our end users are looking at potential future business changes, they have actually integrated the fact that they can use VDI into the business process. So it's really been a paradigm shift on our part here in a very positive way. So with that, Seth, I'm going to turn that back over to you.
Thanks, Chris. I think you summarized it better than I can. The joint solution with VMware and Atlantis is really, about enabling mobility, solving the business problems you talked about, but in a way that doesn't, compromise the user experience, doesn't make you have to lay a lot of money up front in order to achieve the benefits of VDI. So, with that, I'm not going to, you summarized it better than I could, so I'll move on and, take minutes. Atlantis and VMware are award-winning solutions. I wanted to note one thing, Atlantis won the Best of VMware World in desktop category last year. But actually the one we're more proud of is that, based on a joint implementation with VMware, we won the Best of VMware World Europe last year for a 10,000 seat deployment, and that was kind of a joint award, and more important to us because it's based on a joint customer success. So with that, before we get into the Q&A, VMware and Atlantis have jointly developed a microsite. You can see there at www.atlantis-vmware.fs.com. So all of the resources, the recording from this video, KPs, solution briefs, architectures are all linked to from that site. Contact information is on the right, and with the time we have remaining, we have about 10 more minutes remaining. I wanted to open it up for questions. So there's a Q&A box that's available in the WebEx interface. So if you have questions, please submit them there and get started with some that we already have. Chris, the first one's for you. I wanted to, in my section I talked about persistent versus stateless. I know you're primarily persistent, but one of the people wanted to know what types of users are using VDI in your organization. Are you 100% persistent? Do you have a slightly mixed environment? Are your execs running VDI themselves?
Yes, very, very good question. At the present time, we are still 100% persistent, although we are looking at certain areas of the bank, our priority service call center, as an opportunity to work toward a diskless or a non-persistent type of environment. So we are looking at that. As far as who are the users that are using it, one of the things that was really interesting about our deployment is when I talk to people about virtual desktop, and so they go, oh, you're pushing virtual desktops out to your teller line. Well, actually, that was the last place we pushed it to. The first place we pushed it to was to our call knowledge workers, our production workers, like the loan officers and our private banking officers, and even, senior management. As a matter of fact, the very first person on our VDI environment was our CEO and chairman of the board. He came to me and said, Chris, I need to, work from my condo off site here in Seattle for a few weeks. Can you set me up to do that? And I said, Pete, absolutely, we can do that, and I think you're going to like this. And so, kind of stuck my neck out a little bit on that one, but it was I was pretty confident it was going to work well for him. And so, yes, the answer is our executives are using it, our knowledge workers are using it. So it's pretty much used bank-wide at this point.
Yeah. The next question I'll direct to Mutu. This is about what additional types of bandwidth are required when you implement VDI? You have to change your infrastructure. How does it work between branch offices and kind of a financial services organization?
In a lot of our customers that we see, there is no additional bandwidth requirements if you're implementing this within the network. From a branch office perspective, depending on the users you have in the branch, we have multiple solutions that we are proposing, that we propose for a typical branch office. If you have 10 users, 50 users, 250 users, depending on how many users, depending on what type of users, we propose different solutions for that. Some may involve increasing bandwidth a little bit, but the majority of the solutions, and in particular, the solution that we just spoke about with Atlantis, which is primarily from a standpoint and also to support the remote office workers, home office workers, etc., there is absolutely no additional bandwidth required.
The next question, there was a question that I'll direct to Muthu. I think it was around the work with OS licensing for VDI. What are the options? You have to license the operating system and applications. How does that handled?
From an operating system standpoint, it is like a traditional licensing model. You're not incurring anything additional. From a lot of our customers, if you're going to be using Microsoft desktops, you will have to purchase the Microsoft VA license. Customer has software assurance, you don't need any additional licensing for that. But if the customer does not have software assurance, they need to purchase Microsoft licenses. The list price for that is $100 a pop, but we have seen customers pay as low as majority of our customers pay $20 per license for that to get that license going. That's only additional software licensing. Other than that, it's the standard Microsoft operating system license, VMware license, and Atlantis licensing. That's about it.
The next question was directed for me at Atlantis, which was around, Chris mentioned the IOPS were an issue, Windows 7 doubled the IOPS. The question was around, how IOPS do you need to plan for in a VDI environment? This is a tricky, I live day in and day out, and at Atlantis where, that's, one of the things that we're solving. The works is that basically a desktop can generate a tremendous amount of IOPS. If it has access to the IOPS, it can be thousands of IOPS per desktop. Now, when it's just idling or running during the steady state and you're not doing anything with it, it could average as low as, 6 to 10 IOPS. Now, industry standard, there's a lot of industry information out there about planning 10, 20, or 30 IOPS. However, if you do that, you're going to be restricting the performance of the virtual desktops to less than physical PC. Typical physical PC performance, if you think about a physical hard drive on your laptop or desktop, a normal spinning drive can do 80 to 150 desktop or IOPS. And in that scenario, to guarantee equal to physical PC to perform, you have to increase the number of IOPS, which is the point at which it becomes too expensive. And like Chris mentioned, if they were going to have to spend another $100,000 to get equal to PC performance, they were not going to do the VDI project. So what Atlantis allows you to do is deliver the IOPS using local server memory. You can have hundreds or thousands of IOPS per desktop. You don't have to worry about sizing and storage for that anymore. And that translates to a user experience that's equivalent to having like local SSD in a physical PC for each user. And it really makes it so that, faster than a physical PC, applications launch instantly. You can do things like search Outlook and search desktop and not have to turn that off in a VDI environment, which is often the case if you only have 10, 20, or 30 IOPS. So basically what we recommend is that you size for something that's equivalent to a physical PC so you can ensure physical PC performance. And the most cost-effective way to do that is to use optimization software like Atlantis in combination with your existing storage. So I think we're nearing the end, and I just wanted to reiterate the recordings and presentation will be posted on the microsite, the atlantis.vmware.fs.com. You'll receive an email that is recording in it as a follow-up to this webinar, and we thank you for attending, and a big thanks to Chris Green for taking the time to share his experience with the joint solution.
You're welcome.